Welcome to Blueprint for Health and Healing, reversing disease from its foundation. Today's topic is anemia, how to have good blood. Hello, I'm Dr. John Clark, and we're in a series that has a number of presentations that you may want to look at. Today we're talking about when your blood count gets low. A lot of people have this problem, and it usually is recognized when they get their blood taken in a laboratory. They'll look at the results and there'll be a L for low next to their hemoglobin. It'll be below the levels that are considered ideal for their gender and age and so forth, and they worry about it. Well, that's why the test is taken, so you know whether to worry about it or not. So today we'll be talking about how to have good blood. This talk really came about when I had some patients who had some real serious illnesses that caused them to have low blood counts. And a number of them, I told them a few of the facts that are in this presentation. I discovered that a lot of times in our lifestyle center we would take their blood at the beginning of the program and at the end, and everybody in the program, their hemoglobin improved and their blood proteins improved. It would have been interesting to have made it an official study and publish on it. But our diet was very clean and special to help them to have good health, and it showed up in their blood. And what does blood have to do with good health? Well, we say perfect health depends on perfect circulation. Now, you're probably very clear and know that if your circulation stops, so does life. But people don't realize if you only have poor circulation, that you're going to have poor health. And really our topic here is about what is circulating, and that's the blood. So if you're anemic, it's going to take more passes of the blood through the blood vessels, through the heart, through the lungs to do the same thing. In other words, if your red cell count or your hemoglobin was half what it's supposed to be, then we'd have to pump the blood twice as fast to get the same result. Does that sort of make sense? And so we're looking at keeping the blood good, keeping the red cell count up, or the hemoglobin. And it really has to do with tissue oxygenation. Everywhere in your body you need oxygen. You need it at your brain, you need it at your kidneys, you need every tissue. Your eyes. And when oxygen levels drop, so does the function of every organ in your body. And they start screaming. And by screaming I mean they put out mediators of it's like SOS signals. And things happen. Usually, as we discussed in the lecture in this series on high blood pressure, it makes your blood pressure go up. It makes your heart go faster. It makes your blood vessels tighten up. But all in all, what we're aiming here to do is have good blood so you can have good circulation. And you can have perfect circulation in that it's not only just going everywhere, but what's going everywhere is doing its job. And then there's nutrient distribution. If you don't have good blood, you have trouble getting the food you ate going to where it needs to go. There's temperature regulation. There's things that will hamper this are like external pressure, posture, what the condition of the blood is. And so we're really targeting the condition of the blood here. Now, nature honors those who render obedience to her laws. Drinking a lot of alcohol instead of eating food, your blood count goes down. Failing to eat enough iron, other minerals, your blood count goes down. And so a good example of a good diet is Daniel in the Bible. He went to Babylon sort of against his will. And when he got there, they tried to feed him food that not only was he not used to, but he recognized as being hard on his health. So he requested pulse to eat and water to drink. And God honored him. he looked fairer and fatter than everybody else, along with his 3 friends that participated with him in that. So I have a picture here of Pulse. Basically, we have lentil stew and bread. A very vegetarian diet. And so God honors those who render obedience to the laws. Regularity in mealtime has an interesting impact on nutrition and the quality of blood. People who are always irregular have the problem that the stomach is never ready for the meal. It doesn't make the food into good blood. It's a form of what we say intemperance. And so their blood isn't going to be as good as people who are always regular, because regular people have better digestion. Regular people get more out of their food. Regular people have a lot less illnesses. And so we talk about a strict eating schedule with no irregularities. Irregularities make it so that foods might sit in the stomach too long and rot before the stomach wakes up and says, "Is this a meal? I didn't know it was coming now." And then there's the other problem. When people don't stick on a schedule, they eat too frequently. Eating snacks has been seen as one of the biggest problems in America for weight gain, for heart disease, for a lot of different diseases. And snacking isn't healthy, so strict eating schedule. Now, your blood is there to carry oxygen to the cells. Everything you breathe is going to end up in your blood. And so if you're not breathing pure air, you're going to have impure stuff getting in your blood. And if you have impure stuff getting in your blood, what do you think it's going to do to the quality of your blood? You're going to end up with blood that is unhealthy, that is, you think of fruit that's going rotten. Well, your red blood cells are going to be going rotten. And so exercising freely in the open air, getting plenty of fresh air, having your windows open at night for fresh air so that you're not sleeping in a room where it's unhealthy, where, if you have another person in the room with you and all the windows are closed, you breathe the air, then they breathe the air, then you breathe the air, you think that's good. And you can look at, you start recognizing the air when it comes back to you again, because it's getting laden with carbon dioxide and halitosis and so, if you don't have your window open at night, you'll wake up groggy. You think, man, I didn't sleep well last night. It's because you were sort of anesthetized. You had anesthesia. Anesthesiologists purposely underventilate their patients to increase the carbon dioxide because it has effects for helping people stay asleep. And so breathing out in that fresh air, when you're walking, standing up straight, when you're walking out in the fresh air, breathing deep, making a purposeful effort to expand your lungs, this helps the circulation and it helps the blood. And we're talking here about having good blood. And so good exercise is going to contribute to that. And lung exercises. I often give people lung exercises. You can go to our lecture on good lung health in this series to see a good illustration of doing those exercises. But if you aren't breathing well, it affects your blood. People who live in areas where the oxygen isn't good, either at very high altitudes or things, their blood suffers. And I've treated people with what we call blood dyscrasias, the result of that kind of challenge. Because people who live indoors, they end up having cramped lungs because they're always sitting at their computer. And if you have cramped lungs, then that part of your circulation system isn't working. If that part of your circulation system isn't working, then you're going to have more problems with your blood. So we're talking people who have low blood count. We're talking people whose blood isn't healthy. And we're trying to get it healthy because your life depends on your blood. Have you ever heard it said in the Bible? It says the life is in the blood. It'd be nice to ask the Bible writer which percentage of the people have the life in their blood. Because a lot of people, they're doing things wrong and so there's no life in their blood. So we're helping you to figure out how to have life in your blood. Another thing is proper breathing. And those breathing exercises we have in the lung program presentation on this series will help you. But proper breathing means breathing from your diaphragm. And it just so happens that when you're walking, you tend to breathe correctly. So I often give people exercises to do with breathing while they're walking. But if you're breathing just shallowly from the top of your lungs, then the bottom of your lungs aren't getting ventilated. And when the bottom of your lungs aren't getting ventilated, you have stagnant blood, you have stagnant air, you have pockets where the blood is going to, well, it's kind of like having wet corners in your bathroom and it goes moldy. Yeah, your blood kind of settles there and doesn't move enough, and inflammation increases. So there's a lot of things to having a good environment, a good place for your blood to move around. It's kind of like my blood needs exercise too, and the way it gets exercise is me being very careful to make sure it goes everywhere easily in my body. And so stagnant blood is like a stagnant pond. And if you have poor blood circulation and it gets stagnant, the inflammation goes up. The Japanese have studied this and given it the blood stasis inflammatory syndrome title. And so if you have anemia and you're not exercising, you're going to have a hard time overcoming anemia. I mean, the doctor will give you a shot to try to make your blood go up. You think that's good for you? I had a patient that he would get good and healthy and his blood would come up, and then he would fall off the wagon, start eating junk food, and his blood would go down. Then he'd go to the doctor and the doctor would give him a shot, and then he'd have terrible side effects from that shot, all kinds of health issues from that shot. Yes, it helped make his blood go up, but is that the way you should make your blood go up? Is that really good blood? That's sort of, artificial blood treatments. And so you want to get your exercise, and exercise helps keep your blood pure. It keeps it going through all the filters in your body, your kidney, your liver, your lungs, goes to your skin, all these places where you can get rid of all kinds of toxins. Now, another thing that helps your blood is the sunlight. Man, there's been recent research looking under a microscope at blood vessels showing that when the sun hits the blood vessels, the blood moves more freely through the blood vessel. It has to do with reducing the friction at the blood flow basement membrane of the capillary interface. And it's like, slicking the floor so you can slide across it. And so the sun does that for your circulation. It also will help improve the melatonin within your cells, which are involved both in blood production and in the blood itself. And so we like to see the sunlight. We like to have people get out in the sunlight. The sun is the source of energy. You need energy in your blood. Getting sun's great. And getting some sun so that you sweat a bit, getting rid of toxins. That helps purify the blood. And then, what's blood largely made up of? It's largely made up of water. So what kind of water you drink makes a difference. What kind of water do you drink? And there's all kinds of different waters, but I just say, make sure it's not impure water. Depending on what contaminant might be in the water would sort of dictate what purifying technique you'd use. I mean, there's reverse osmosis, there's carbon filter, and so some people have to boil their water due to presence of things in it from wherever it came from, bacteria, viruses, parasites. But just make sure you have good pure water, and this will give your blood the basis it needs so that it can be healthy. And you use water for drinking, you also use water for bathing. I mean, when people wash their skin, they make it so toxins can leave the skin, and this is going to come from the blood. And so you'll be purifying your blood. One of the problems we have for people who are trying to heal a wound is whether or not they keep the wound clean. And it's a process the body has to go through to make the blood good also. And so if we keep the blood clean, it can improve as well. And so bathing, it gets rid of the impurities out of the blood. It opens up the skin pores so it can expel toxins. People who overwork, it affects their blood. Why do people overwork? Usually stress. Look at this guy. He looks a bit stressed. Yeah, I still have 5 more hours of work to go, and my bedtime is already gone. So stress at work lowers blood counts, makes your blood unhealthy. On the other hand, having a regular schedule of work that has an end point somewhere, that's harder probably if you're working for yourself, because you're your own boss and you're probably the biggest tyrant on the planet, because you can get away with it. The other thing is everything in your environment affects you, because what you breathe goes to your blood. And so if there's mold in your environment, if there's sewers around that you can smell, if there's compost heap, if there's dust mites, people don't realize the impact of this. How about your bathroom that stinks because it doesn't have good ventilation or a fan? And this is, I mean, this is historical. I mean, Florence Nightingale and these different nurses became famous for figuring out some of the environmental things that were affecting their patients, and some of it had to do with the sewer too close to the hospital and people smelling it. Some of it had to do with you know, what they were doing with dead bodies and so forth. So clean sanitation, it affects your blood. Another way it affects your blood is if you're living in a dirty environment, you don't feel good about yourself, you don't feel good about life, you feel depressed, you're more likely to have problems emotionally. And so having a nice clean environment perks up your spirits, and a merry heart doth good like a medicine, and it'll help your blood. Now, if your blood is stagnating, as we said earlier, like a pond, then you're going to have trouble with it being good. And one of the ways it stagnates is if not all the parts of your body are well clothed. You look at our picture here, we got two people out in the country taking a walk. They both have well clothed limbs, as opposed to people who wear short sleeves and short pants and so forth. And it's an issue that a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of them think it really doesn't matter. But I'm saying, yeah, you need to realize it does matter, because it makes a difference. And here's the way it works. The blood is centrally at your heart and your lungs. And if you take and you make the arms cold, then the blood vessels in the arms tighten up. There's a certain amount of volume in the arms. Now it's all in the chest. And that extra blood is like putting rush hour traffic in the freeways surrounding your local town. And when the rush hour traffic hits, everything slows down. When everything slows down, you get inflammation. When you get inflammation, you're in trouble. And but the blood coming back from those cold extremities, which there will be some, actually coming in cool inflames the first organs it hits. And so like the lungs will get inflamed. And I've had people with nosebleeds. And why did they have nosebleeds? Because they're wearing short sleeves. And why does that affect it? Because the blood all gets pushed back to the chest, abdomen, and pelvis. It makes more blood pressure in the central axis. It comes back in inflamed, and they had nosebleeds until they started wearing long sleeves, and then the nosebleeds all went away. And so good health depends on good circulation. Good circulation depends on clothing. Clothing is there to make sure your arms and legs are just as warm as your chest. Now, the other thing with clothing is it can be very constrictive. Here I have a picture of, you know, a bra. It tightens the chest. It lowers the air exchange. People wearing a tight band around their chest breathe a lot fewer milliliters of air with every breath. You want to be able to take a full inspiration of air with every breath. You don't want to be so tight on any clothing. The other thing is tight band around the waist. Tight band around the waist changes the blood flow in the abdomen, literally changes the temperature of the intestines and the rectum. It's measurable. They do studies with this. When the temperature goes up, bacteria overgrow. When bacteria overgrow, they put toxins in the bloodstream. And when they put toxins in the bloodstream, what's it do? Your blood count makes it go down. And so what you do with your clothing affects whether or not you have good blood or not. I mean, when you have anemia, it doesn't mean you have a deficiency of epogen or some drug. It means you need to do something to get the blood count back up. You're doing something unhealthy. Blood's a sign, poor blood's a sign that you're not healthy. And so we want to improve your health in every respect. Another thing that's important is to eat whole grains. White bread, white flour, white rice is not nutritious. It in your bloodstream, it makes your blood sugar go up. High blood sugars give you something we call advanced glycation end products. What's an advanced glycation end product? It means your proteins are sugar-coated, essentially, and the red blood cells will get sugar-coated. How do I know that? Well, I do a test, hemoglobin A1C. It tells me what percentage of your red blood cells are are totally maxed out on sugar. And so you want to make sure you're eating whole grains because they have fiber, because they don't have just free highly refined carbohydrate. And they have a lot of minerals that are helpful. And so eating whole grains, simple grains, fruits of the tree, vegetables, all these nutrient foods, you need a good nutrition base to have good blood. So if you get your blood count back and your hemoglobin's low, you think, what food do I need to eat? Not what pill do I need to take? And it's interesting, you know, we have a lot of discussion about salt because too much salt gives you high blood pressure. But people don't realize that your blood has a lot of salt in it. A lot of times when we do a blood test, you'll see how much sodium and chloride you have in your blood. And you sort of need to maintain that. And so we don't recommend a salt-free diet. We recommend some salt. And when you eat some salt, then it makes sure that your blood keeps the right amount. You have a, you know, sort of a margin for error. The body will get rid of excess, but it can't come up with, you know, some if you aren't taking some. And so how much salt do I need? Well, somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 teaspoon a day. Most Americans are getting 2 teaspoons, so usually they're overloaded, because overloading will give you problems with your blood too. So it's a temperance issue, taking that which is good in moderation. Now, fruits. Why are fruits so good? You see, fruits are the product of the plant. It's like they're babies. And the plant will put all its energy and all its effort into making sure that the fruit has the best nutrients. It'll make sure that the fruit has the things it needs to go to the next generation. Some plants, like that you eat the leaves of, before it's made seeds, the leaves will be healthy and nutritious. But once it starts making seeds, it pulls all the nutrition out of the plant and sticks it into the seeds. And so when you're eating the fruit, you're eating the best part. It's what the plant wanted to give to the world. And so fruits of trees, these are very helpful for producing good blood. So we recommend good fresh fruit, best you can obtain, and that way you'll be good. Now, you don't really want to eat fruits and vegetables at the same meal, because it doesn't help your blood. It creates acidity in the stomach, and it puts impurities in the blood. See, what happens is the fruit digests quickly, the vegetables don't. So let's say you ate a peach and you ate a carrot. Well, the carrot's going to take a long time to digest, whereas the peach is going to digest fairly quickly. And then once it's digested and the digestion keeps going on, it may start rotting. And if it starts rotting, then you will have impurities in your blood that will decrease your count. And you're wondering, why is my count going down? I mean, you can either have this happen in your own gut by mixing fruits and vegetables, or you can just buy it already, you know, fermented stuff already made for you. You call it vinegar. It's rotten fruit. And so vinegar will make your count go down. You want to eat good food that will support good blood. And I just want to touch on nuts, because nuts, again, just like fruit, they're the product of the tree. So it puts all its energy into giving it the best nutrition. It's really a seed. And so the nuts are loaded with good minerals. The nuts are loaded with good fat to soluble vitamins. The nuts are loaded with the enzymes that help with fat digestion. All kinds of good things in nuts. And I'm just sort of going through different food groups and thinking about them in terms of why would I want them for good blood? And, you know, so, and let's contrast this. Yes, the tree takes the time and energy to put its whole you know, effort into making the nut super nutrient. Do you think a rabbit takes extra time to put extra nutrients into its muscles that somebody might be going to eat? You think a cow takes extra time to put extra nutrients into its rump roast? No. I mean, it's not supposed to be eaten. It's not a part of what God created to be eaten. It doesn't have that factor of putting its best in the part you're supposed to eat, because you're not supposed to eat it. And so let's look now at vegetables. And you know, the leafy greens, the sprouts, you know, microgreens, things like green beans. These are all superfoods, and especially helpful for getting like folate And people who eat more greens survive COVID much better. But we're talking here about blood. And in the blood, it needs the minerals. So we have here the chart, and these minerals in these plant products are helpful. There's also chlorophyll in there. Some people argue that chlorophyll is very close to blood in its makeup. And I mean, I won't argue with that. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's certainly good for making good blood. And so vegetables are helpful. On the other hand, if you're not eating much of anything, if you're homeless, that's not good. If you're eating scanty, ill-cooked food, you're going to be in trouble. Like this gentleman's eating white bread and looks fairly sickly, and that might well be what's going on. And you know, if you have a poor cook in the house and they're not making you good food, and you don't look forward to meals, having a good appetite is part of having good blood. Very interesting, the connection between mind, body, and the food presentation, and you want a good variety, not just white bread and luncheon meat or whatever. You want bread that's whole grain. You want a variety of different things, though. Different fruits, different vegetables, different grains, different beans, different sprouts, and so appetizing food presented in a pretty way has been shown to stimulate appetite, improve health, and make people more likely to eat good stuff. And even how you set the table is, they just love studying these kind of things. But it helps make good blood as well. Now, you think this lady's going to have good blood? Perverted appetite. You don't want to satisfy perverted appetite. Meat, grease, spices. Perverted appetites, just because you crave it doesn't mean it's going to make you good blood. Just because you like it doesn't mean it's good for you. So it helps to evaluate things for its nutritional value. And so what is this? Fruit Loops. Well, what are those? Does it look like anything you've ever seen? Does it look like a bean? Does it look like well, it's probably got oats in it. Does it look like an oat? No, you can't even recognize it. It's nice to be able to recognize your food. And if you can recognize it, it's probably less processed. That stuff's super processed. And people eating that, just to give you a study here, I was studying high blood pressure, and I was looking at what foods would help and what wouldn't. And I looked into box cereals. And so the researchers were given the job of taking a bunch of groups of rats. In this case, they took 3 groups of rats, 1, 2, 3, and they fed each group differently. The first group got normal rat chow, known to give rats a good longevity, and they were the group to compare everybody else to. The second group got the vitamin water from in this case, Fruit Loops, the vitamins that get sprayed on to make it look like it might be good. That's all they got was vitamin water. The third group had to eat the Fruit Loops or whatever it was. I think it was actually a different product, but anyway, similar idea, a box cereal. And in the study, the first set of rats, they lived their full life. The second set of rats lived about 6 weeks, which had just vitamin water. The third set of rats lived 2 weeks. They died faster than if they'd been starved on vitamin water. And this stuff just doesn't sustain life. And so in the article about high blood pressure, the researchers complained bitterly that their hardest thing was to keep enough rats alive to finish the study. That stuff doesn't make good blood. It doesn't sustain life. It's not there to help you live longer. It's just like white bread or worse. And it's because they cook it so long they can spray it into O's or whatever that shape of those things are. It's loaded with sugar, often loaded with lots of sodium, especially as associated with salt. And so you don't want that kind of food. Condiments, spices. Oh, but I love my condiments. I like my spices. It makes the food taste better. Yeah, but even though it makes your food taste better, it doesn't necessarily make your blood better. Your blood will suffer on this kind of thing. It inflames the stomach, it corrupts the blood, it makes it so you have problems. Some of these condiments most of them have vinegar and oil. The oil coats the salad. It won't digest where it's supposed to digest in your stomach because it's all oily. It goes down the small intestine to get degreased, but then it can't get back up the stomach to get digested. The vinegar is already the inflammation or disease. So if I get a bacteria growing on my skin and it makes it red and it makes it swell and makes it weepy, I say I have a disease. that happens to a fruit, what do we call it? Well, we say it's good for vinegar. It's got a disease. And so vinegar is really diseased food. And so these are all diseased foods. You've got vinegar in all these things, and you go eating that, you won't have good blood. The other thing that's in there often, especially if it's got vinegar or rotted fermented ingredients, like would probably be expected in all these, then you end up with high levels of free glutamate. That'll give you anemia as well. And anything in there that's fermented, a lot of your steak sauces are just loaded with fermented stuff beyond vinegar. And they have excess fat, and that cuts down the oxygen in your bloodstream. It makes it so the blood has a much harder time getting the oxygen to the tissues. It also, when it's loaded with oils take a lot more oxygen in the digestive process. They take from your body's oxygen to do their breaking down of these fats. So much better off not eating refined foods, not eating foods with all this vinegar and spices and condiments. And oh, I know, you're eating that meat that was slaughtered half a year ago, sat in the freezer too long, was set out on the shelf too long, and it tastes nasty, but you can make it, tolerable with ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard. Well, yeah, it's nice to disguise something if it needs to be eaten, but don't eat that stuff. Mustard, pepper, spices, pickles, all these things, they irritate the stomach, they make the blood feverish. You're not going to have good blood if you're always looking for fiery spices. Pickles, and they have huge amounts of nitrates. These pickles are not going to help your blood making organs. They're going to make it so that you're going to have trouble making good blood. The vinegar is going to irritate the liver. The liver doesn't know what to do with vinegar, and so it ends up in the bloodstream, going out through the kidneys, only with a bunch of calcium from your bones. If you're low on calcium, you're going to have trouble making good blood too. Expensive. When you go to a restaurant, unless they specifically advertise that they're a health food restaurant, their goal is not to make you healthy. Their goal is to make you poor, meaning they get rich because they just want to sell another meal. And people tend to like a wow in every bite. And so most of that wow in every bite food isn't healthy. And so choosing to eat at these places is probably going to cause you poor blood. Much better to cook at home, know what's in your food, and enjoy the company with your family. And when you get rid of some of this junk out of your diet, when you get rid of, for example, donuts, which is refined food, and replace it with an apple, you always want to have a replacement. Don't just get rid of stuff. Think about what can I replace this with that I'll enjoy eating, or that I want to learn to enjoy eating, and that'll give me good blood. And we're going to give you a lot of things to eliminate here, but each time, sort of don't just eliminate something and not add something, because you do have to eat something, and you need to make changes, and you don't want an impoverished diet. A lot of people, they get rid of the bad stuff only not to replace it with anything good, but just to end up with almost nothing. And so it's a process, it's a learning process. I've told some people, go to Amazon, and I've seen books on there, how to become a vegetarian, how to become a plant-based person. I mean, there are suggestions, might not all be good, but at least they have a plan for you to make the switch and to substitute and to improve, and only make changes as you can embrace them and enjoy them and appreciate them. If you do everything we say tonight, you'll probably go crazy tomorrow because the switch would be dramatic. So we'll take it a step at a time. I mean, some of this stuff is pretty logical and it probably makes sense, and you're thinking, yeah, that's easy to change. Some of it's more challenging because you might find that we just removed the staple dish that's on your table 5 times a week. And then you want to be able to replace that with some other staple good food that you're willing to eat 5 times a week, although we're not suggesting you eat the same thing every day. Overeating is counterproductive. The blood has to go to the stomach. It has to cart that food from the stomach to other parts of your body. If you're putting too much food in and it takes too long to digest, it's going to be carting a lot of food for a long time, and that's, overwork. And so we want to make sure you're not overeating, not taking and filling the stomach with too much food. And the other thing that happens when you overeat is it increases glycation end products. It increases inflammation. That all slows blood production. And so eat moderate, eat well, chew well. Chewing well is very important. Now, complex combinations, it's all going to end up in the blood. And if they don't all get along, if they aren't all compatible, it's going to inflame the blood. Much better off eating 3 or 4 food items at most and making the most of them and eating as much of them as you want rather than seeing how many types of things you can try. You don't have to imbalance your entire life's nutrition at your next sitting. In fact, that isn't a good idea. Better to balance it over a period of time. And combinations that don't work well together, I've already mentioned fruits and vegetables, but things that take a long time to digest don't mix well with things that take a short time to digest. And you can keep a journal and kind of watch yourself and see what you eat, and then later look and sort of journal how you feel and compare the two. And if every time you mix peanut butter and applesauce, you end up with indigestion or don't feel good, well, applesauce digests really fast, peanut butter digests really slow, maybe that's a problem. You become your own doctor by doing that kind of thing, comparing a reasoning cause to effect, looking at what affects you. Most prepared meals, TV dinners, stuff that you buy in the store and bring home and stick in your oven, are just like the fast food restaurants, and their goal is to make you a patron, not live forever. And so we suggest, if you do have to get prepared foods, become very acquainted with the way it was made. Make sure you pick the best ones, and that way you can be healthy. People eating out at fast food restaurants have a much higher risk of diseases such as strokes. You can calculate, just go around town, count the fast food restaurants. You can calculate the number of strokes that will hit that hospital that year based on the number of fast food joints. It's been proven in the research. Same is true of diabetes. The more you eat out, the more diabetes you'll have. Now, if you want good blood, you have to get good nutrition. It's okay to put good food in your mouth, but if it doesn't get chewed well, it'll come out the other end with all the nutrition it went in with. And that's not healthy because you just missed out on all that nutrition. So you have to chew the food well. You have to chew it until you've broken down things that the stomach and intestines can't break down. You have to make sure that the digestive enzymes can get at every part of that food. And so the more time you spend chewing, the more the saliva can mix with the food. Also the particles will break down. The better your digestion will be, the better your nutrition will be for good blood, which is our topic today. Now, speaking of saliva, if you drink your food, you won't add any saliva to it to speak of. Some people say, well, chew your juices. Good, good try, but no, chewing juices doesn't make you produce more saliva. And there's nothing there to chew. So you're just sort of, running your jaw for no reason at all doing that. So by the same token, dry food makes better blood because you add more digestive juices to it. You add more cofactors to it. You end up putting more energy into chewing it and making it into smaller particles. Dry food's very good. And food taken in the liquid state doesn't work so well because it drops off at the wrong place in your intestines. If you go to our website, northernlightshealtheducation.com, under newsletter articles, we have a whole article on juicing and smoothies and soups and porridges and liquid food and how they aren't physiological, how your body doesn't treat them like whole foods, and how you won't have good blood. And so we're talking about good blood here, and dry food is much better than wet food for producing good blood. Now, bread is an interesting topic. It's sort of a double-edged sword. Not all bread's created equal. Not all bread is raised, similarly. And for example, sourdough bread is raised with bacteria collected out of the air. Yeast bread is more likely raised with yeast from like breweries or so forth, or of course they make it commercially. And so sour bread doesn't convert into good blood. And so you're better off eating bread. Well, the best is like flatbreads or gems or things that aren't raised at all with any of these raising agents. Certainly not baking soda. Baking soda will cause you to lose B vitamins. You'll get low blood count from the low B vitamins. The baking soda will make it so your stomach can't digest protein because it's an antacid. And if you can't digest protein, you end up with protein malnutrition. And also the proteins undigested go into your bloodstream, sort of like leaky gut syndrome. Baking soda is not a good idea. So some of the best is like making, so we make waffles. We have a recipe on our website on waffles, how you make them with no raising agent, but lots of good ingredients. And you have a good hot waffle iron, it'll raise itself just due to the steam. And so eating good food, eating good bread, poor blood, good bread, good blood. Whole wheat bread, good blood. White bread, poor blood. So what you choose for your grains makes a difference. And there's sometimes if we have somebody really, sick and dying, we might use some grape juice with eggs to help. Sort of as they get started, we'll pour a glass of grape juice, put an egg in it. We might even put it in the blender to mix it up. It's sort of a jump start. Well, let's just spend a little more time with the fermented foods because look at those two apples. Which one do you think has a disease or has an infection? Right, the one on the right, because, yeah, that doesn't look good. But if I squeeze it and put it in the bottle, same color as what's in the bottom of the bottle, people think it's a health tonic. Why? Well, we're gullible. People are gullible, especially if media pushes an item. But this stuff is not healthy. The research doesn't show this is healthy. It causes osteoporosis. Causes issues with your kidneys. It causes all kinds. Your body doesn't know what to do with acetic acid. The bacteria don't know what to do with acetic acid. It's just not usable by your body. That's what vinegar is acetic acid. And so the idea that fermentation is better is really sort of a delusion that's been perpetrated on the population by those who had rotten apples and couldn't get them to market and wanted to make money on them, I assume. All right, nowadays, anyway. Now there's certain foods that don't help your blood because they are, they're not food. And they have chemicals. And the chemicals tend to affect the blood. For tea, it's the tannins, it's the fluoride, it's the caffeine. For coffee, it's the acidic oils, it's the fermented product, it is fermented. For tobacco, it's the nicotine, but they don't just put nicotine in there. The nicotine does come in the actual tobacco plant, but they put many chemicals in there additionally. I mean, I'm not suggesting there's any reason that you need any of these. I mean, they're not a nutrient, they're not a food, they don't make good blood, they corrupt your blood, and so a lot of the liquor, I mean, this will poison your blood cells, literally. This will give you, less and less stem cells to make blood cells, and just like it gives you less and less brain cells. I know it's very addictive, and how do you get over an addiction to liquor or tobacco? The best thing you can do is start eating mostly fresh fruits and vegetables. In one study, 80% of those who went on a fresh fruit and vegetable diet and smoked or drank quit spontaneously without going through any program, or really withdrawals for that matter. Now, wine, there's been a lot of discussion about wine and supposedly it helping your heart. But they left out the fact that it hurts all kinds of other things. And so when you're drinking this stuff, it's just one step before vinegar. And it definitely corrupts the blood. And just like any other alcoholic beverage, it'll affect the blood-making cells in the bone marrow. So this is not a health tonic. And I think it was a commercial interest, broadcast, really an advertisement in hiding that they said research shows. A lot of times these companies will buy off research. It's not that hard to do. Money talks. And lots of money talks a lot. And so people will, sell their soul to produce research that shows that the sponsor's product is healthy. It's not healthy. And so it diseases the blood, it inflames the blood. Tobacco, it corrupts the blood. Flesh meat, I mean, how long has it been dead? And what's it got in it? Well, it's high in fat. It's got arachidonic acid. It's got guanine. Those slow your brain down. It's got lots of problems with, it's got the life in the blood. It's also got blood poisons, blood parasites. It's got blood bacteria and viruses. You go eating an animal and he's got blood like you, and you take that blood into you, it won't help your blood. There's sort of a misconception. If I want to build muscles, I'll eat the muscles off a cow. Why not? If you want to have a smart brain, why don't you eat the brain out of a smart animal? If you want to have good blood, you drink their blood. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. If I want a good concrete slab like I'm standing on here, do I take a bunch of concrete slabs and grind them up and that? No, we don't like to start with old concrete slabs to build new ones. And so you want to start with fresh things and things that are healthy, and don't take it from an animal. Flesh meat will depreciate the blood, and so you're getting vegetables secondhand. The animal ate the vegetables to get good meat, to get good muscles. You eat those muscles. That's not helpful. You want to eat what they ate to have good muscles, or whatever you're trying to grow. Now, the liability to take disease is increased tenfold by meat eating. And I just keep kind of harping on this. If you already have impure blood and you eat the flesh of animals, it gets even worse. But doctors don't understand this. I'm just telling you. When I was in my 20s and I caught an infectious disease from the air, a lung disease. And the doctor said, well, you should probably eat meat so you have more protein, because you'll need that to overcome your disease. I didn't need meat to overcome my disease for sure. It would have made me worse. But I did overcome my disease. Eating sick animals produces sick blood. Does that make sense? And how do you know if the animal's well? I went to school at a grade school which had a fence between it and a pasture where cows that were lined up to go into slaughter were every day. You'd see cows out there with a huge cancerous eyeball hanging out of their head. You'd see cows, all kinds of problems. They are, and if you're a farmer, you don't send a healthy cow that's making babies for you to market. You send the one that's a problem or has sickness, or you just can't quite get them up off the ground without picking them up with a forklift. And you send them off because, well, they're no more use to you otherwise. I'm sure there's a few good animals make it to market, but a lot of them are sickly. For example, I lived in a town where they slaughtered 14,000 hogs a day. They'd bring them in trucks all the way from Canada. And in some studies, up to 80% of those animals, by the time they reached slaughter, had an active pneumonia in their lungs, 80%. Because they live in concentrated feedlot buildings, like 50 feet wide by 1,000 feet long. They live over a grate in the floor where their poop just drops down into a pit. They have fans that blow the odor of that pit out of the building. They tell me if the fans stop blowing within 17 minutes, the hogs start dying because of the stuff coming up from the sewer below them. But within 12 minutes, the people start dying. It was like, whoa, and these animals live here their whole lives. And so eating sick animals will make sick food, will make sick blood, and your blood will be corrupted by what's in their blood. A lot of these animals are already coming to it's like they live in a city. They're like, well, the city's this barn 50 feet wide and 1,000 feet long. And so beware of that. Pork is especially bad for the blood. High in fat, lots of parasites, toxins, and all kinds of things. And it's not considered a great food. It slows your brain down 7 times worse than would beef. There's all kinds of things. The pig was made to be it is a scavenger, just like a mushroom, and is a scavenger. And so the pig won't make people sick, won't give you good blood. Now, animal fat also is a problem. It's a saturated fat. It inflames the blood. It increases the inflammation. So we would do tests for inflammation, a blood test, and we'd find your inflammation was higher. It also is going to slow the blood down. It decreases its oxygen carrying capacity. One good big meal of animal fat will make your oxygen on your brain fall below 70%. It doesn't return to normal for 3 whole days. The fat affects the blood that long. Other things that affect the blood are butter, cheese, rich pastries. You just can't convert these into good blood. Your blood is going to end up being inflamed from the sugar, malnourished from the white flour, irritated from the chocolate and the other things that are added as weird colors. You know, here we see donuts that are bright pink and some there that are other colors. Those colorings, those dyes, are oftentimes toxic or have cancer-causing properties. So, let's suppose you decide to eat a cow. Which cow should you eat? Well, maybe you want to check. Maybe you want to look at him before he dies. Maybe you want to get a death certificate on him. Make sure you know what his life was like and what he died of. Maybe look at his medical records. But most people, they think a cow's a cow when they come. You know, they talked to grade school, and they asked the kids, you know, where does milk come from? Oh, it comes from the store. It comes from a carton. None of them realized it came from a cow. And that's the way most people are. They go to the fast food joint and they're going to get beef. They just think it's a, you know, ground up product that gets made into patties, and they have no idea. They certainly have no idea what cow it came from. And in this modern age, your cow may have come from Argentina. It might have come from, you know, someplace way out of the country. And so get a health assessment on the cows and chickens that you get your milk and eggs and meat from, because otherwise, you know, you're going to end up with poor blood and wonder why. And now, what will make the cow especially have an effect on your blood? How about if the cow was mistreated on the way to market? What if they were beaten sorely? I mean, I've been in other countries where, you know, you go out front and pick the animal you want to eat during that meal. They'll take the animal and some of them they'll beat right in front of you to up their cortisol levels, stress hormones, so that when you eat it, you get the stress hormones, and it's sort of considered a delicacy. That does not help you make good blood. Happy animals are better, but don't eat happy animals either. Now, there is something that's very important psychologically to blood making, being happy. And one of the best things you can do to be happy is help other people. The pleasure of doing good to others imparts a glow to the feelings which flashes through the nerves, quickens the circulation of blood, and induces mental and physical health. And now I want to talk a little bit about certain nutrients just for a bit, because there's certain nutrients you don't want to be without to get low on iron. And this is often a problem, and you need some other nutrients along with iron to help it absorb, such as vitamin C. It helps its absorption. Some people, if they're low on iodine, can't absorb iron. Came across one patient who had a genetic defect that made him have trouble absorbing iron and using iron. And he would often have to get iron shots, but if he took iodine, it made it so he could get the iron from his dietary or supplement sources. And so a lot of times if people are having trouble with their iron, I'll suggest iodine. Where do we get iodine? Like kelp granules. You can buy kelp granules in different stores, and just look and make sure it shows a good iodine content on the label. B12, if you're low on B12, where's B12 come from? Well, really, it's sort of ubiquitous, but one of the reasons that people have trouble with B12 in the modern times is that it's the way we treat our vegetables. See, it grows on the surface. You have the plant out in the field, the B12 grows on the surface, but they bring the food in, they wash and wax and polish and purify it, and in the end, they've gotten rid of the B12. Much better to have fruits and vegetables from a local farmer's market, from your own garden. Then you probably get plenty of B12, especially with fruits and vegetables that are difficult to wash. Leaves would be like comfrey. Yeah, it's known to be loaded with B12 because you just aren't going to wash it off. And then there's phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are like vitamins and quercetin, CoQ10, that kind of thing. And best to get those from plants rather than getting them from supplements. So let's talk about iron. What's high in iron? Soybeans, sesame, lentils, oats, olives, spinach. Although olives have it added, that's why they're black. Peas. How about vitamin C? We're looking here at citrus, kiwi, cabbage, peppers. How about iodine? Where do we get that? I usually get it from that middle product there. Maine Coast or organic, I mean that's usually in most health food stores. You can use Lugol solution if you are really low on it and you can't get it up. But just eating seaweed, you know, your sushi rolls there. These things will be helpful to get your iodine up. There's iodized salt, there's herbs, bladderwrack, sea moss. You know, they're really more forms of seaweed. B12, not overwashing your vegetables. Now, a lot of drugs will give you anemia because they affect your digestive tract, because they affect your blood-making organs, because they might be creating inflammation or poisoning the cells in your bone marrow, especially antibiotics. There's certain antibiotics, you take them and your risk of anemia goes way, way up. Chloramphenicol, you know, these different antibiotics will do it to you. Most people think they want drugs for a quick fix, but a quick fix, you know, you didn't get this quickly probably, and quick fixes aren't always lasting. Sometimes it's a little bit like taking coffee. You know, if you take coffee, you get a buzz the first time you take it. It's like you've never had coffee before in your life, and then you get a cup of it and you feel so much better and you have so much energy. Well, guess what? Over time, you have to take coffee just to get back to the baseline from which you started, because you get a letdown afterwards, and the letdowns accumulate. Pretty soon you're lower than you ever were, and then you drink the coffee and just get back up to normal. That's the way it is with a lot of these drugs that you're on in the rest of your life, such as high blood pressure pills, diabetic pills. They have to keep increasing the doses, you know, Parkinson's pills. The doses keep going up, or stronger medicines, and it's because of this fact that you become sort of intolerant to the drugs. And so anyway, in summary, anemia. Interesting that the Bible says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. What we've talked about here is how to have good life in your blood. We've gone at it from all different angles. And you'll want to review this, rewatch this. Perfect health depends on perfect circulation. And so our whole goal here has been to have good blood for the circulation so that it really works. Good blood is the result of good adherence to physical laws that God has ordained in our being. And the physical laws we talk about are pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. You know, it's interesting, Ezekiel 18:32 says, "For I have no pleasure in the death of him that dieth, saith the Lord. Wherefore turn yourselves and live." Really, we've given you good advice, we've given you good things to do, and we just want you to have good lives and to live. Our website is Northern Lights Health Education. They've got a lot of resources here for you. One talk that we do on this channel called How Do I apply healthy principles in my daily life, helps you make a schedule and put it all together in your life. So this has been Anemia, How to Have Good Blood, in our series Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation.